Dr. Hawkins,
Here.
Mrs. Wider,
Here.
Mrs. Cleveland,
Here.
Mrs. Moore,
Here.
Mr. Simons.
Present.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
It has been moved in second. Mrs. Petter, please call the roll.
Mrs. Wider,
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins.
Yes. Motion passes. Are there any visitors?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Next item is the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved in second. Mrs. Petter, please call the roll.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry, question?
Yes. There's a piece for St. Mike's that it appears that we're either in the middle or we're the broker for them. Could you explain that a little bit? I think it's,
Item.
what item is that?
So with any non-public school,
Yes.
based upon their Title I population,
Yes.
we are the physical agent for all that. So there's flow-through money. And so just as an example, and historically, and I know you're not asked for this, but I think everybody knows me by now, I'm going to say it anyway, not to be disrespectful to any board members, but just really to talk about this. So the flow-through money that comes from federal grants, that's regulated specifically Title I funds.
Okay.
When we look at the amount of money that we get from the state of Ohio in general, is different. So currently, non-public schools get more support from the state of Ohio than Princeton City schools. And while those are two separate items, I think that that is relevant as we were talking about that we are still the physical agent for non-public schools. And while we do hold back a little bit of money, which we're allowed to do, and that's administrative costs, it certainly does not pay for us to do this. And it'd be way better if the individual non-public schools would actually take care of their own funding through Title I funds. But that's not the way it's set up. So it is, all it simply is, it's money in, money out, and we get a very small percentage to manage that.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I can tell you back in my past life, at Cherndale Elementary, early on, if it involved title money, they had to come and deliver those services inside our building. So we had kids from the next block over coming in and out all the time and had to make room for them.
Okay.
Thank you for that input. Any other questions about it? Or anything else in the consent agenda? All right, Mrs. Petter, would you call the roll?
Mrs. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins,
Yes,
Mrs. Wider,
Yes.
and the motion passes. District business, approval of temporary appropriation resolution and certificate of estimated resources.
I move to approve the temporary fiscal year 22 appropriation resolution and certificate of estimated resources as presented.
Second.
It has been moved in second. Any questions or comments?
This is the temporary get us started budget and revenue projections. We have July, August, September. You'll be asked to approve the final and then submit it to the county as our final. Again, there's some pieces we don't know yet. We don't have some grant information yet. We don't have some, that's mostly what we're looking for is grant information. And some grants we received this year, we don't know if they'll receive them again next year. We don't know about our auxiliary services. As Tom mentioned, the new biennial budget allowed for our non-public, in-district non-public schools to take care of their own finances in the state funding, not the federal funding part, but in the state funds they receive. We've heard from two, one's staying, one's going. We need to hear from a few more, so that'll adjust the 401 fund, which is where the auxiliary services money is kept. So some little changes I'll explain as we move through, but hopefully the temporary will hold us until the final in September.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Mrs. Petter, please call the roll.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins,
Yes,
Mrs. Wyder,
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland. Yes.
motion carries. Item B, transfers and advances.
I move to approve the transfers and advances as presented.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Comments?
So these are the two standard transfers we do at the beginning of each fiscal year, the exact same amount, $215,000 to the athletic fund, $175,000 to NJROTC. So the $215 helps with operations of athletics, and the $175 pays for the portion of the salary that the Navy doesn't cover. But these are the same amounts we've approved since I've been here.
Okay. Mrs. Petter, please call the roll.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins,
Yes,
Mrs. Wyder,
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore.
Yes.
motion passes. C, approval of school insurance consultants.
I move to approve the School Insurance Consultants LLC proposal effective 7/1/21 through 6/30/2022.
Second.
It has been moved in second. Any comments?
Yeah, I just have a couple comments. Very interesting year in the insurance world, as you would expect. COVID did have its impact there. I think the most interesting part was the timeline. Normally, you would have approved this at the second meeting in June. We didn't get the information until June 30, and literally turned it around. Wright Specialty held all of our insurance basically last year. This year, they combined Wright Specialty with AFM, best coverage and best price. Wright's standalone price was an incredible increase, and the consultant mixed it in with AFM product, and it's actually about $2,000 savings for the district. So the big hit for us was the flood insurance. So, and,
Interesting.
you know, very interesting in the different coverages for flood insurance. It is, I've learned way too much about flood insurance. Liberty Mutual came in with a really strong bid. They were new to bid to the group. This group handles, I think, almost 400 districts around the state and bids us out in various groups. Liberty Mutual was the first time they bid. They did get some of the business, and they were really close to getting our business, but the flood insurance coverage is what took them out. They were gonna put $500,000 on deductible on the high school, the middle school, and the football field.
Whoa.
The football field's in the floodplain. We have $500,000 on it right now. It is, it still is. It's the best we could do at this point.
Okay.
So, you know, that kind of almost equates, if the worst case scenario happened down at the field, we'd get a new turf field at, you know, in essence, half price.
Oh.
But we will continue to look at options to make that coverage a little stronger, since we did have the occurrence. When was it? The spring?
Yeah, and for those that may be listening may remember the torrential downpour that we had, but we had the blockage of that culvert going from the stadium over to the school and to a retention area, and because it was blocked and they couldn't free it, it did flood the football field, and we were very, very fortunate with quick action. Chris Petter, our treasurer, did a great job making sure we got in touch with the insurance agent right away, and they did a wonderful job of saving. I think the whole thing may have been like $42,000,
We didn't
maybe
hit
even
the-
less, and we were very, very fortunate with that.
I just want to say this too, as we were reviewing this, some of the different areas we were looking at, we were trying to see what kinds of claims the district has had in the past. And this is an unbelievable statistic. And since 2011 through 2019, we've had 5 property claims. And the agent was just flummoxed about how few claims a district of our size with the different properties that we have. He said that's just exceptional work by the district.
Those that can knock on wood, including at home, please knock on wood.
So,
Thank you for joining us.
so, very good news, savings of $2,000, when probably we weren't really expecting to see
Does
that.
this include the softball and baseball fields?
Yeah, the actual football field is the only piece truly in the flood zone, because, you know, we can all visualize that drop. I kept explaining to the consultant, who's been through our district, I said, I just don't get why the high school and the middle school, the one company was separating them out. I said, you know the hill that the football field, you can just see, because I said, people sit up on the hill and watch the game. I said, I can't imagine how much water we would have to have for the high school and middle school flood.
Which is ironically, the baseball field,
It's a little
the
hill.
practice field, the softball and tennis courts are lower than where the middle school and high school.
Yes.
But those are not flood zone.
But they're still higher than the football field,
Correct.
so.
Interesting.
Yes, it is.
So we continue to work on that and try to find another option to get a little more coverage. Right now, he said to add coverage would be an additional $55,000 just for the football field. So we're
Wow.
gonna continue to shop that a little more and see what we can do. But I think very good news on the insurance front.
Thank you for that.
You provided me with some information on cybersecurity insurance. Now that, if someone tries to ransom all of our, information, we're covered, is that correct?
We have coverage, and it's pretty good. Again, is it 100%? No, it's not 100%, but it's very good coverage. It has been a hot topic in our world, certainly. Chris can attest to that too. We have talked about additional education for our staff to protect us. I think that is a critical area that we need to push and address a little bit more.
So we have, what, 4,000 Chromebooks out there, so that's 4,000 users that we probably didn't have 2 years ago, let's say. Are we hardened against intrusion externally?
Yeah, the best that we can. We actually have a couple layers of defense, which many school districts that have had issues, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, only have one layer. We have multiple layers on top of that, and we're going to hopefully approve a single sign-on here in a little bit, which is one of the only agenda items that I will talk in great length about, because of, again, the support and the security that we would have with that. So, yeah, we have multiple layers.
Chris Lockhart also works very closely with our A-side, SWOCA. They, of course, have a pulse on this southwest area as well as what the state is doing. He has a whole users group of techie people just like him who just really love doing that. I used to be one, I can relate. So it's just, they're trying to stay ahead, and every day's just a fight to stay ahead. So I think he's doing a great job.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? Mrs. Petter, please call the roll.
Dr. Hawkins,
Yes?
Mrs. Whiter,
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Simons.
Yes.
The motion passes. Item D, agreement with Chris Singleton Speaks.
I move to approve the agreement with Chris Singleton Speaks LLC as presented.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Any comments on this, please? No questions or comments on it? Okay. Mrs. Petter, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Whiter,
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins.
Yes. Motion passes. Item E, service agreement with Butler County, ESC.
I move to approve the service agreement with Butler County ESC for a substitute school psychologist as presented.
Second.
Moved in second. Any questions? Mrs. Petter, please call the roll.
Mrs. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mrs. Whiter,
Yes.
Motion passes. Item F, contract with Camelot Community Care.
I move to approve the contract with Camelot Community Care for 2021-2022 as presented.
Second.
It has been moved in second. Any questions?
Specifically mentions 3 elementary schools, and I'm wondering about the other buildings.
Dr. Phillips, if you don't mind.
The 3 elementary schools are Evendale, Woodlawn, and Glendale. The other schools already have therapists in those buildings. They represent the Talbot House services. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that those 3 schools were served, because there are some students who need some support in those schools, and we were able to do that with our ESSER funds and our success funds.
Mhm. So all elementary schools are covered, we just have 2 different providers,
Yes.
essentially.
So now we have all of them covered as opposed to, 5 of them covered.
And based on specific needs of students as well.
Absolutely.
Can they switch if necessary?
Yes.
Oh, sure, yes.
I'm sorry, what was your question?
Can they switch? In other
Oh.
words,
Yes.
Can a Sharonville student receive services, or can a Glendale student receive services from the other one?
Yeah, when we talk about based on students' needs, it really is based on students' needs. So, although it's better to stay at the one elementary school, but ultimately they've moved before. That's a historical practice of the district, which is one of the equitable practices that we've done forever. Thanks, Dr. Phillips.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Petter, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mrs. Whiter,
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland,
Yes.
Motion carries. Item G, approval of participation agreement with Grant Us Hope.
I move to approve the participation agreement with Grant Us Hope as presented.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Petter, please call the roll.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mrs. Whiter,
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore.
Yes.
Motion passes. Item G, service contract with Children's Home for professional development.
I move to approve the service contract with the Children's Home for Professional Development 2021 through 2022 as presented.
Second.
It has been moved in second. Any questions? Mrs. Petter, please call the roll.
Dr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mrs. Whiter,
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Motion passes. Item I, service contract with Children's Home for prevention groups.
I move to approve the service contract with the Children's Home for Prevention Groups 2021-2022 as presented.
Second.
Go ahead, Jean.
It has been moved in second. Any questions? Mrs. Petter, please call the roll.
Mrs. Whiter,
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins,
Yes. Motion passes. Item J, agreement with KCE Champions Before and After School Enrichment.
I move to approve the contract with KCE Champions for before and/or after school enrichment 2021-2022 as presented.
Second.
Moved in second. Any comments or questions?
I would just say that this is going to be part of the academic update. I'd be glad to answer any questions. This is, it's been an ongoing discussion with the board about the importance of offering before and after school care for our students. We're really proud to be able to do this. Tanya Westwright, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, Instruction and Assessment, really have done a great job, and she'll be leading the discussion here in the academic update.
Excellent, we look forward to that.
But prior to any board action, I'd be glad to answer any questions if people have specific questions.
I have one question, that is for the, what's termed tuition and fees. What percentage of that do you think will be covered by various programs for the students?
Are you asking how much it's going to cost to
No,
participate?
you have the cost in here. I'm
Right.
asking, what percentage of that cost do you think will be covered by various programs? I don't know the titles.
You mean as opposed to coming out of general budget, or?
Oh, no, this is all funded specifically by participation of individuals. So if there's,
Yes.
so if there are specific need-based programs that people can participate in, we'll work individually with students on that.
Okay.
Mrs. Petter, please call the roll.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins?
Yes,
Mrs. Wyder?
Yes.
motion passes. Item K, agreement with Xavier University for athletic training program.
I move to approve the agreement with Xavier University for the athletic training students education program as presented.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Petter, please call the roll.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins?
Yes,
Mrs. Wyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
motion passes. Item L, service agreement with ClassLink.
I move to approve the service agreement with ClassLink as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Just that, hallelujah. This program, and I really wish that I could mandate right this second that every parent would hear what I'm getting ready to say. You know, for years and years, Chris Petter and others have heaped praise on Chris Lockhart tonight, so it's going to keep going. But Chris has done a great job with single sign-on programs that we have not had to pay for. Sometimes you get what you pay for. So the great single sign-on that we've had before was really good. It was basic. Of course it was basic because it was free. What ClassLink does, it's going to be a game changer for this district. It's a single sign-on, which means kids go to one area to sign on, and they're logged into a variety of programs that they go to. They can go into different programs which we've vetted, and they know they could go to their search, they could do what have you. And this is really twofold. One would be that if kids say, boy, I did all this stuff, and I went here, and I logged into the program, we'd be able to see that. Also, from a student perspective, it shows what you're doing. And so the great work, the work ethic that we're trying to develop and help nurture with kids and families and so forth, we'll be able to see that. And that's being able to track that and see it is going to be very, very beneficial. And, you know, what we've talked about this multiple times, what gets measured gets done. And this is more than just a Hawthorne effect for those people that are into psychology. You know, way back when they studied all these factory workers, they turned the lights up brighter and productivity increased. And this light is going to be very bright. And it's going to be something that is going to really be very, very beneficial for our district. It's going to take a little professional development, but not significant. Not significant. It's very user-friendly. And for students, it's exceptionally user-friendly because they just go to one place to sign on. And we'll be able to, again, monitor some of this. And, again, this is going to be a game changer because the facts are going to be right in front of us and right in front of the students. So ClassLink is going to be a great partner. They, between Chris and myself, we were able to really negotiate a tremendous rate, much more so than what they've done with other districts. So, shh. Don't say anything. Sorry, ClassLink. But they're really good partners. So we're exceptionally excited about this. The teachers will be, administrators. Again, this is going to be a game changer.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
So is it like a learning management system, like Cornerstone or something like that, where you can access it whether you're on a Princeton computer or not? Okay, thanks.
We have, yes, and again, once we have this, so it's like so if you look at any single classroom, so we may have one program that'd be great for math, another program that'd be great for reading, another program that'd be great. So instead of having the kids have to memorize and know all these different passwords, it's just one. But it's the tracking method, so we'll be able to see the student was on this program for 20 minutes from this time to this time. And maybe some of the students may not like that, but here you go, students. You're assigned work for a reason. Parents, your sons and daughters, we need to grow, we need to learn, and this is going to be a wonderful way to support that. So thank you. Good question.
I say hallelujah too. It sounds like a one-stop shop for training.
Absolutely.
That's the way the professional world is moving. Yeah, so that's great that they're getting that in high school.
Yep, it's always great to know that we're ahead of the professional groups and the businesses. So we don't mind leading businesses in change. Thank you, Gina Ruffin-Moore, for pointing that out.
Okay. Mrs. Petter, please call the roll.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Wyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Motion passes. Item M, contract with Holiday Inn Center Park.
I move to approve the contract with Holiday Inn Center Park for prom 2022 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Any comments?
Just very quickly, we do recognize that this is outside of the district. We've historically had programs, prom and so forth within the district. Whatever we do, we try to stay within the district. So there's two areas or two venues that could support our prom. One would be the Delta Hotel. That date was not available. The other would be Sharonville Convention Center. We actually had that booked. They have a bigger convention coming in, and we got kicked out. So that is why, and we've, other entities have hosted their prom and homecoming at this site. It is a very good site, and actually, from where after prom is, it's in close proximity to the after prom, so it makes sense. And to the homecoming and prom committees have really done a great job of planning that, and that is, while it is adult supervised, it's student-led. So we're really proud of the work the students have done and the adults.
So where is this Holiday Inn Center Park?
Mulhauser and
I just
Union
wanted to
Center,
say.
roughly.
Yeah,
You didn't say where, I just wanted
it's
to say
Mulhauser.
where. Okay.
Mulhauser Road and
I
Union
thought that was
Center.
a good question.
I mean,
No, it's a
wait.
good
Yep.
question if you're not, okay, IKEA.
No, I know where it's at. No.
Okay.
I really know where it's at.
Okay.
So
You
for-
know the address where it's at.
Yes.
I
You
didn't
wanted
say it.
everybody else to
I wanted
know.
everybody else
Yes.
to know exactly where it was at.
Right,
Because I know IKEA quite well.
yes, okay.
Yes.
It's on the,
Motel,
It's-
Holiday
it's on
Inn.
the fringes of our district, yeah.
It's on
Or
the
the
fringes of our
fringe.
district, on
It's on the
Mulhauser,
fringes,
right,
yeah.
right by IKEA.
We all know where IKEA is.
It's right across the street.
It's Westchester. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
One more plug, Brian.
Mrs. Petter,
Yes.
please call the roll.
Dr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Wyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Motion passes. Item N, in-person 2021-22 school year opening.
I move to approve the in-person 2021-2022 school year opening as presented.
Second.
Any comments or
Yes.
questions? Yes.
Yes, so essentially, this is just the fact we're going back in person. We were very deliberate not to say normal. Because I tell you, we learned a lot. And while I'm on record, and I'll continue to stay on record, saying that while we learned and while we grew and while there's different instructional methodologies or whatever, I'm not happy we had COVID, even though there was a lot of change. And while there certainly you could find the silver lining in any cloud, the pandemic has been and continues to be terrible for people around this world. Over 600,000 people in our country, our great country, have died. For that, thousands, millions of families and people affected. So I know that when I speak, sometimes we talk about what we've learned and how we grew, and it shouldn't have taken COVID to do A, B, and C. But the fact of the matter is that we did learn, we did grow, and when we come back, we're going to be stronger than we were when we were in person the last time. So this is simply saying that we're going to go back. Masks are going to be optional. Starting tomorrow, district-wide, masks will be optional. We do, and we're not going to say that if you received vaccine, then you don't have to wear a mask. Masks are optional. And the reason why we still don't have vaccines from birth all the way through, the elderly. We don't have that. There's only still certain ages. So we know that as we move forward, we're going to continue to listen to the recommendations. Earlier today, there was Return to Learning Network that was hosted by Children's Hospital. We continue to participate in those district-wide. We have people that tune in every single time. We continue to learn. We continue to respond to what we've learned. And if things change, we will change. I know there's been a lot of information about the Delta virus and other strands and viruses that are out, and we're very concerned about the different strains and what's happening. So we stay tuned, we stay aware, and as we transition back, we continue to have meetings with area superintendents. We have meetings consistently with all areas across the board. When we have our reopening or our retreat, which will be held primarily in this building, we know that that's going to be a big topic. So we learned a lot. We learned a lot about traffic flow and about the positives of that. So all schools will not be going back to traditional way where kids crossing each other all the time. So we learned a lot about what students need and what they need to come to school with. And so it's not going to be going back to the same old, same old. It will not be like that. And you saw ClassLink as an example of one of the things that's going to change. And again, we're really excited to be able to come back in person, and we're going to continue to be responsive to the medical community, what we know. I'm very, very, very proud of being the superintendent of a district that has been fast, fluid, and flexible all the way throughout the coronavirus, the great support of the Board of Education. And somebody who doesn't get enough credit is the young lady sitting next to me, because when it comes to being able to make quick decisions and sometimes being able to have to move money around to be responsive to our students, Chris Petter has done that consistently. When we look at what we've done across the board, has everything been perfect? No. Is everybody 100% happy, and would they give us flying colors? No. But I will tell you, and I'm very proud to say this, I'd say the vast majority would. And it's because, in part of the people that are out there right now, the administrative cabinet, the administrators in the district that are not in the building, but primarily it's the administrators that are in the building and the teachers that worked closely with students in very difficult situations, not knowing if kids had COVID or not, and they worked their tails off to make it happen. The staff, the frontline staff, the administrative assistants that greeted the kids, that had the kids, the nurses, the health aide, the health specialists, dealt with that. I could not be more proud. But honestly, I don't want to go back. Don't ever want that. And so hopefully with the vaccinations, with the advances in the medical community and some things that they're doing and what we've learned about the value of wearing masks, and I tell you, we need to really think long and hard from a board perspective moving into flu season next year about mask wearing and what we need to do, because we know that just about all but eliminated influenza is because of wearing masks. That's just a fact. So excited about it and looking forward to answering any questions that may exist. And again, in person, we're still going to have great after-school programs. We're still going to have opportunities for Zoom. We're still going to do a lot. But in terms of going back, we'll be in person 100% next year.
We thank you for that, and I think, all of us would, champion your leadership through this. And we certainly didn't know what to expect, or there wasn't a template for what to do, but we're very proud and grateful for the wedge that you forged through this pandemic for us. I think Princeton is all the better for it.
Well, thank you. I've never let an opportunity go when I get a compliment to talk about the team. Because
Yes.
honestly,
We realize that.
it is the team. I know it takes a leader, all that. It is the team, and it is unbelievable what was done. And just for, I guess for edification, if nothing else, but, we still had to do certain things this summer. We have to have plans that are uploaded. And some of that transparency we hadn't seen before, and that is, one of those silver linings. But again, horrific what we've had to deal with. But Dr. Phillips, it was last week, 2 weeks ago, when there was a final upload of a document that we had to put up there. And it's on our website. So anybody could see all that we're going to do. And as we move forward with in-person and that, we will continue to do some Q&As. We're going to continue to be very, very transparent with what we're doing and offer great parent and community educational programs. And one of the contracts you approved tonight, Chris Singleton, he will be our very first speaker in a parent community leadership series or educational series. It's going to be amazing. So we've learned, we've done a lot, and again, thank you to the Board of Education for trusting that we were going in the right direction, because I really believe we did. I think we were the only school district in the state of Ohio that went one group 5 straight days while the other group was at home learning, and we flip-flopped. I hadn't heard of one other in the state of Ohio. We received rave reviews because of that. We also, on top of that, we were able to instruct our students in person 20% more than we would have if we would have done a 2 days, like Monday and Tuesday, every week kids are in session. We were able to get more face-to-face instruction. And while certainly when we look at scores and all that, we would love our scores to be higher. We know the pandemic certainly killed us in a lot of different respects. But the fact of the matter is, you're going to see when we talk about scores coming up, you're going to see there's some great work that was done across the board, as well as some areas we need to really hit hard. But you're going to see some of the highest scores, believe it or not, that we've had in the last 6 years on these idiotic state tests. If you really want to know how I feel, just ask me. Thank you.
I had a question.
Yes.
No, first, let me say that I absolutely concur. I can't even speak enough of what our district has done to get us through COVID. As each of our leaders came forward, it was almost like it was mindless. I mean, like they didn't have to think about it, which is amazing in and of itself. Some of the things that we put in place, will we continue with those things? And what I mean by that is, I was in high school the other day and saw where we had the plexiglass dividers on some of the tables or desks. Will we continue to have those things, or are we going to take everything down? I mean, again, I know we've learned a lot. I hear you loud and clear about the masks this fall, but we also invested in some other resources to help us get through the pandemic. What are we doing with those resources?
Yeah, so one of the things that we were very deliberate about, we talked about at the very last Q&A, is that we will still continue to clean. We will still have certain protocols. We will still provide hand sanitizers. All that stuff matters. We know that. And so, when you know better, you do better. And so all those, I shouldn't say all, many of those protocols that we put into place specifically around cleaning, the Clorox 360, the other devices we use, we will continue to do that. We will continue to provide the hand sanitizers. We will continue to provide masks. If students come to school and they need or want masks, they have a right, and we are going to provide that for them. Dr. Jameson, Mr. Fricky have done a great job with PPE. We had a huge order, another big order that's coming in. And all of that, we're going to protect our staff. If our staff chooses to wear masks, face masks, but traditionally the plastic mask or whatever, we have extra we will provide. We were going to continue to do that to keep our student body safe. And regarding the plexiglass and all that, in certain situations, we will continue to do that. In others, they may be taken down just because of the traffic flow, and again, because of the fact we learned a lot when almost all the kids came back. So we had about 70% of the kids that came back. So some of those barriers were in between desks, and quite frankly, we may not have enough room. So some of those may be removed. But by and large, all the protocols, the same protocols for cleaning, safety, all of that stuff will be followed. Again, I believe in the middle school and high school, although we leave that decision up to the people that know it best at work, but I believe the traffic patterns are going to stay the same with one-way traffic. And then in the elementary schools, as we can, not all elementary schools, it was conducive for one-way traffic, but we did our very, very best to do that. And again, the teachers, the support staff, the administrators did an amazing job of keeping that traffic flow down, the students cross each other, and we learned by doing that, we helped reduce the transmission rate.
Love it, thank you. I just wanted
Sure.
you to speak towards that, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I also want to commend you and the district for the yeoman's job you've done with the pandemic. It's just incomparable. So I often try to do best practices, but I couldn't really do it with that one. You guys were ahead of the game, and thank you for all the hard work. And in addition, I'm praying for the students of our district and thanking the good Lord for the expertise and the care that you and the district have put into dealing with the losses of 3 students recently. And so thank you for all your hard work.
Any other comments?
One, I'm
Yes.
sorry. How, have we thought about yet how we're going to be doing our athletic events this fall? Have there been any discussion on what should we expect?
Yes, so when we talk about coming back 100% and in person, that's the same that we're looking at. And again, but again, just like as we transitioned into what became the new normal with COVID, and with us trying to go, remember, it was just going to be an extended spring break initially, if you remember what Governor DeWine said. But then he came back very quickly and said, that's not what I meant. But ultimately, things can change very, very rapidly. And we know, if you look at the numbers, it's almost eerie. And Dr. Jameson and Tricia Roddy, every week, they met and they did this dashboard. I tell you, there were sometimes it felt like about every hour we were putting out another email. Now, it wasn't like that. It just felt like that because of the work that transpired behind the scenes. So I say, yes, we're going to be back full bore with fans and all that stuff because that's what we know right now. But we know that things change, and we need to be responsive to the medical community. And the health commissioner, and again, Greg Kesterman and his staff, Jeremy Hessel and others did an amazing job providing information every single week through leadership of Chad Hilliker and many others when we had these weekly calls. So as of right now, let's pack the football stadium, pack the soccer stadium. Let's make sure that tennis courts are jam-packed, cross-country, volleyball, marching band, let's get it going and have everybody back. But our community really rose up when it came time, when we had to say limited capacity, and this is what we were going to do, and face masks. And I am telling you, I can't remember a time that I heard, and I want to be pushed on this, where we had any discipline for a kid, for a young man or a young woman, because they wouldn't wear masks. Wouldn't wear a mask. I cannot remember a time. There may have been some that the principals dealt with, whatever. I don't remember ever hearing about it. And when we're in the schools, making some adjustments. It's been amazing. And there may be, who knows, there may be a staff member or two out there right now that are saying, I remember this one time where I had to tell that young man or young lady and they did not pull their mask up. It's a lot easier to remember one time because it was just that one time, perhaps. So really proud of the students as well for the great work that they did dealing with something that none of us as adults ever had to deal with in our lives.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mrs. Petter, call the roll.
Mrs. Whiter,
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins.
Yes, and the motion passes. We now move into our discussion phase, academic update as promised.
Yes, so I'm going to ask Tanya Westwright to step up to the podium, and while she's coming up, let me just kind of set the stage for a little bit. Our district is so beautifully diverse, and this is probably the most told story by me, but myself, my wife, and our 3 great kids moved here in very large part because of the diversity that Princeton yields. On top of that, when you look at the services, and the academic classes, and it's just amazing. And for sure, I'm going to get in trouble when I go home tonight talking about our upcoming senior son, Tommy Burton. Okay? He ran cross country as a freshman. It wasn't his thing. I know Tommy. I know it wasn't his thing. He's probably watching it for sure. He's watching Dad talk right now. But that wasn't his thing. So in many other places, what happens? Well, then he doesn't participate in whatever because that's not his thing. But there's all these other opportunities like water polo. So he chooses water polo and he tries to play. And I used to make fun of him. You don't even know how to swim. I mean, he did, but he hadn't swum more than 4 laps in his life. And then he's trying to, do all this great work and playing water polo. So then COVID happens, and water polo goes to spring. Maybe it goes to spring. But there's things that happen. Princeton continues to offer more and more and more. So he does golf. He got 3 varsity letters in 3 separate sports. And listen, I know some of you may be thinking, oh, Tom Burton's talking about how great of an athlete his son is. He's okay. Like, I'm not saying he's like the greatest athlete. I'm not saying that. Now, his mom may. And for sure now I'm getting in trouble.
You are.
But the fact of the matter is, it's about opportunities. That's what it's about. So any parent that's listening, if your son or daughter doesn't like something, we got something for them. We got something else. So I tried like the Dickens to get Tommy to play football this year. Wouldn't that have been great? 4 varsity letters, perhaps, maybe. I don't know, Coach. I don't know if you like them or not. But the fact of the matter is, this is what this presentation is all about. It's about yet another opportunity that we're going to put forth because when you know better, you do better. And we know our community wants it, we know it deserves it, and we know we're going to be better off with a before and after school program. Tanya?
Good evening, everyone. As Mr. Burton said, this is something that we have been working on for quite a while. Right before the pandemic, we had a surprise phone call from our partner, the YMCA, that they were going to discontinue that relationship for multiple reasons, and they give you 30 days notice. So I remember us being in a complete panic around December and January time. And at that point, the Blue Ash YMCA was offering before and after school care for only 4 of our buildings. We did transport if we were able to for all the other elementary schools. But this was a huge service to parents, and it's really critical as a working parent or not a working parent to have a safe and fun place for your child to be before and after school. Our school hours are 9 to 4, and so many other people, that's not their work hours. So we're very excited to try to offer this Champions before and after school care. We did explore looking at the YMCA again. We also explored using our ESSER funds to create our own systems, and we looked at what the cost would be. It was going to be pretty substantial. As we looked at the costs as if we were paying our own staff members or hiring additional people to come in and the licensing that went with it. So we've been doing some research, and one of the best programs that we came upon was the Champions program. I was actually able to just jump on a call as a parent for a school that was in CPS. I had heard about it from many districts, but I just kind of wanted to see what would be my perception as a parent. I was so very impressed and immediately stopped working on all the different things that I was working on. One of the things that impressed me the most was the curriculum. And so you guys know that that's my role as a curriculum coordinator in the past. And I was so happy that they talked about offering character development after school, creative expression, executive functioning, literacy, inquiry-based learning, and just other ways to bring in the community. And one of the other great things about them is they're a turnkey program. So we provide the space, they work on the licensing, they make sure that everyone is included, and they provide that comprehensive quality and accreditation on their own. So we can work as a partner, but they truly have a lot of systems in place that are exciting. I was able to reach out to other districts. They work with many districts in the area, including Loveland, Indian Hill, Madeira, Deer Park, Sycamore, and again, I mentioned CPS. And then we are also very excited that they were very reasonable. What they talked about is that we want to provide a similar service to our families that they had when they did with the Blue Ash YMCA. So I listed, I'm sorry, Chris, I forgot to tell you to switch sides.
One more.
That's why I just did that one, and then the next one is just the hours and the costs. So before school, you can sign up for 1 to 2 days or 3 to 5 days. After school, 1 to 2 or 3 to 5, and before and after school will give you your best rate, which is 3 to 5 days per week. It's $110 per week. And again, this mirrors exactly what the YMCA, the cost for that program was in the past for the district. And I believe it mirrors the cost that when Princeton ran their own after school and before and after school program. The other benefit of this program is that they will also, once our licensing is up, so we're on a pretty quick turnaround to get this for August 12th. But they will work with the Hamilton County voucher system for those parents that have vouchers that they work with other daycare systems with. Champions will help those families get that coverage so that that coverage can provide the payments for this before and after school care with Princeton. So that was one of the great things. They provide that service, and they're very used to providing that service. It is a subsidiary of KinderCare. So again, they have the backing, they have the credentials, and they're ready and excited. Beth has been our partner. I cannot pronounce her last name, so I don't want to mess it up. But she's ready to go, and she has a full team of people. And our goal is to have all 8 buildings be able to offer this before and after school. And as soon as we get the go-ahead, we will send that out to families with the cost, with who to contact, so we can get parents and families registered. So that could be as a working parent, that's a huge relief to people to know exactly what will be offered, and then they can make their decisions accordingly. So we're very excited to move forward and think this will be a great partnership. Any
Yes, this
questions?
Sounds good, because that certainly was a hole that we had in our services for kids, so
Yes.
thank you for that.
Does the district do background checks, or since it's a turnkey, the company does the background checks on the employees, I guess?
The company will be doing the background checks because they have to have their license with ODE, so they'll be using the same structures that we use in human resources for the staffing for Champions. They are hoping that they can get community members and staff members if it's possible. We know some of them may be overlap for elementary people, but if they did want to work for Princeton and Champions, if they wanted to do that after school from 4 to 6, that would be an option. The before school, we'll have to work with Dr. Jamison to figure out how to do that, or if we can do that, because our teachers start at 8 and school starts at 9. So there would be an hour overlap. There could be some people that possibly could cover the 6:30 to 8 o'clock, but at 8 o'clock, they're on the clock for Princeton, so we'll work through that. Any other
Any
questions?
other comments or questions?
I just have
Thank
a
you.
comment. You know, you heard me praise Tanya Westwright earlier too, but you did a great job vetting this, and I know we were moving quickly. We were talking about doing everything ourselves. And part of there, and I want to be really clear, could we have done it? Oh, for sure. We could have done it. There's a time value of money and a time value of resource allocation. And when you look at all of that, when you have a program like the Champions program and what that has with, again, when we're talking about executive functioning, when you're talking about, you know, I know Tanya mentioned fun, and sure, it is going to be enjoyable and fun or whatever, but learning can be, and that's what it's going to be. Now, we're really working, and we're going to be very deliberate, and you know, I remember the one time I talked earlier in the fall about parents, you need to be parents, and you need to step up. We need you to step up during COVID. And quite frankly, a lot of people were really happy that I said that. But I'm going to tell you it was a mistake, because I should never have mentioned COVID. Parents need to step up. And that's what has to happen. And we will help you the best that we possibly can. If you need help and support getting your sons and daughters to specific programs, we're going to help and support you. The nice thing with some of what we're doing right now, if there's transportation issues and you can't pick up somebody from this program, you need to let us know. And John Fricke, who's listening right now, he's going to make it happen. And I have said a lot of big things over my tenure as superintendent, like we're going to have more than 100 business leaders and business partners in 1 year. And people looking out there, and we had 38 in attendance. People thought I was crazy. And as I mentioned before, I'm probably crazy for other reasons, but having big vision and really services for our students, I will always try to be as visionary as possible to help our students. And so this is going to really help our students. So parents, if you need this program, please let us know if you need any help in facilitating to get your sons and daughters there. They're going to continue to learn. It is going to be a safe, beautiful environment. And again, if there's issues with that, there's people in that will be running the program that you should reach out to. And if they're not supportive or helpful like you want, we need to know that. But we're, as Tanya mentioned a couple times, we were very excited about this. And again, this is something that was a vision of the Board of Education as well. I know Mr. Simons had talked about it multiple times. And I said, we're working on it. And we did. And we vetted. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer than what we wanted. But we're coming back in person. We're coming back stronger than we've been before. And we're going to provide more services. And this is one of the many additional services we will be providing. And Tanya, thank you so much for leading the charge.
Absolutely. We're very excited, like you said, as a working parent, even if you do get off in time, when you're trying to rush and get there, it's nice to know that your child is safe, that they're doing academic activities. And this program during the time of COVID, you know, they had to make some adjustments with their own issues. So we're going to be able to start back with champions and providing the service for our students. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom, we have another group of students who are just a little bit older than the elementary school students.
Yeah. So middle school students. You know what? You know, it's interesting. That's a very good point. You know, we're looking at intramural programs, really kind of detailed intramural programs, not just one program, but looking at that. And programs like this are scalable. It just is a matter of time before doing some of those things. So we're looking at specific programs for middle school. High school, we have a plethora of clubs and activities and all that. One of the things that I think in general, we could do a better job, we could always do a better job communicating, always. You could go to the nth degree. And we need to really push some additional information out to the families to let all of our families know exactly what we have to offer. So a very actively engaged intramural program. We're going to provide transportation for students going home after that. Is something that we're looking at. We know we have people developing it. And again, this time, resource of money and all that in the allocation, we're going to be able to make things happen. We just need to be a little bit more patient with that one.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Or we shift to the treasurer's report?
First item is the best news. Fiscal year '21 is history. Closing went really well. I mean, we had a certain level of anxiety using the new state software, but our team at SWOCA really supported us through running this and running into some interesting hurdles that we had to jump, but we made it and we're thrilled. Fiscal year 22 is now being prepared. We're processing payrolls already. We're setting up the books. Thank you for the board for approving our appropriation and our amended certificate. So all those things are underway, and believe it or not, we're also starting our preparation for our financial report and audit for the last fiscal year. It just seems
Audit
to
already.
just never end, but it's just what we do. I handed out, Forecast 5 produced this little one-pager about the new Fair School Funding Plan. So the Fair School Funding Plan survived the biennial budget. Very interesting. Tom and I were both on the call with the Alliance today, and wow, lots of things to still unpack on that biennial budget. But just to give you some of the basics, so we're going to show in formula aid about $184,000 increase net this year, and then in fiscal year 23 about $889,000 increase. The key things that this formula is doing also is the student wellness and success funds are no longer separate. So for 2 years, we moved that little chunk of money out of general fund over into a separate fund. Now that money's all coming back and is embedded in the Fair School Funding formula. Other key things are that the deducts are going away. This probably makes every treasurer in the state of Ohio the happiest that we could ever be, because the messaging every time we've had a budget is about the revenue and what the districts are getting. Here's how much public schools are getting, and they never talk about the money they're taking. It's always the above-the-line revenue they talk about, and they never talk about the takeaways. So you can see in red there on I, J, L are those deducts. Deducts for our net open enrollment is a negative for this district. Community school transfer out tuition, scholarship tuition transfer out. So they would give us a chunk of money and then they'd start subtracting all those three things out. That won't happen anymore. We will be funded based on the students that are in the district. There will not be, they were your kid, but they went here, so we're going to take it away. So I think this formula will be easier for the public to understand. It will be nice to have this.
Chris, if I could add just one thing. I would love to see a story in the newspaper about how much state aid everybody is getting from our great state of Ohio. When you look at just the difference, and we've talked so much about equity and all that, when you look at that, it's just amazing because you get funded so many different ways, as Chris was just illustrating. But one of the ways that people, this formula is also based upon the perception of wealth of a school district and the ability of a school district to pass levies. So the greater you have that ability, and if you're seen as being wealthier, it's actually a disadvantage of getting state funds. So I would love to see a story to talk about how much every school district is getting based specifically on state allocation. Because as Chris said, until that is done, people will think that Princeton's getting way more money than what we're getting. And even though this is positive for us, and you'll hear more here shortly, but the fact of the matter is, when you look at this, is still forcing us to be really reliant on individual taxpayers. And while this is a step in the right direction, we need more. Thank you.
Thank you. So another con for this is that since it didn't pass in its own separate legislation, it's part of a biennial budget, so it's 2 years. So as we said in several meetings I've been in since this happened, the work continues. So we have to keep the pressure on because there have been multiple funding formulas that last a biennial budget or they last a term of a governor, and things change. So we really want to keep pushing. The funding for Princeton specifically, if we can get to a point where the formula is 100% funded, will be good. This first 2 years, because of the excess of ESSER funds throughout the country, the state, districts that were receiving more ESSER funds received a little bit less in state funding. So they adjusted for these 2 years based on the ESSER dollars that certain districts are receiving. So that money will also come back. Remember, we were heavily capped on the current formula. It wasn't a formula, heavily capped. We should have been receiving almost twice the amount we were receiving. So if we can keep a formula like this in place, we can get it funded 100%, Princeton will see that change happen. But those are a lot of what ifs, and we just have to keep the pressure on that this keeps moving forward. The other really good thing too is another plus was catastrophic aid. That's reimbursement for high-cost special needs students. The funding for that is doubling. So we will see an increase there. Another little bit of good news. So there are a lot of positives if we can keep this moving forward. So certainly, again, it's working towards moving the money to the districts that have been heavily capped, whilst the districts who have been on the guarantee, enrollment decreasing, getting richer from property. Some of the pipeline districts have received a lot of tax revenue. You know, they shouldn't receive as much from the state if that's how we're going to decide how we fund schools. So a lot of unpacking left to do in this, and Forecast 5 quickly put this out. They've been really involved in the whole process. So we've had weekly meetings as we've moved through this, so they're constantly pushing data at us, and it's good stuff. So I immediately after the call set a schedule. I can go on and I can book 15 minutes with our consultant, and I said, okay, let's go through this. I want you to think only about Princeton. And he went through, and those were the things we outlined. So
Okay.
great to have that resource. June financial report will be next board meeting. We were focusing on getting the appropriation and the certificate ready, so we'll have that ready. I couldn't not say anything about Jody Wright, our payroll and benefits administrator, is returning to her home district, Hamilton City Schools. Sandy Bertram is returning to Princeton City Schools, so we kind of traded for a little bit. Sandy's coming from Loveland. She was 30-plus years experience in payroll, so she's returning back here to Princeton. We're excited to have her, but we sure are going to miss Jody Wright after 6 years of solid work in payroll and benefits. So thank you to Jody.
Thank you. Well, thank you. And thank you for what you do to keep us more than just solvent, but enabling us to do all the wonderful programs that we need for kids. So thank you.
Thank you.
To that department. Superintendent's report.
As everybody knows, these have been some tough times, and the loss of anybody in our Viking family is difficult for us all, but obviously much more difficult for the loved ones, the family and loved ones that deal with that loss each and every day. So what I'd like to do is to have everybody join me in a moment of silence. If it's in your heart to pray, do so. If it's just a thought, to the families that are dealing with horrific and tragic losses right now. If you could join me in a moment of silence, thank you. Thank you. You know, during these times, I was asked the other day, you know, how I'm holding up. you know, as a leader. And it's not just me. We've talked about this at Cabinet. It is everybody in this district, everybody in this room, the teachers that have worked alongside with some of the students who have been lost, the support staff, the principals, I mean, bus drivers, all of them. Everybody is grieving. And I was asked, how do you think it's difficult? How are you doing? And it must be so hard because you're on an island, and I'm talking specifically as a superintendent, but many of us may feel that we're on an island. That has not been the case. And I want to personally thank the support of the community, my superintendent colleagues, specifically the people that are in this room, who, whether it may have just been a thought or a prayer, or specifically reaching out, the staff who've reached out. It's just been amazing. The people in this room that have gone on home visits with me, that have been the crisis team that we pulled together to deal and provide resources for our students and families. I am not an island, and I've been lifted up through these horrific times, and that is something that our community should be proud of, that we continue to come together in general, but then in trying times, it is simply amazing what happens in Viking country. But again, our thoughts and prayers with the families and loved ones, and we've been able to have conversations, individual conversations, participated in celebration of lives and so forth. But I would have been remiss if I did not have a moment of silence, and I did not start my report specifically with that. And again, to thank all those people that have lifted me as one of the leaders of the school district, but also those that came in early, that stayed late, to make sure that we had resources for students, putting together a Hope and Healing part of our website, which are still developing and still providing more resources. In fact, just today I sent some information to Dr. Jameson about trying to get some additional support for one of the family members, and we're going to continue to do that. We love our students. We grieve the loss of any student or staff or family member, and we will continue to be there for our community. And as you will see in the Viking report that will be out to the entire community, the headline of the Viking report, if you will, is "Our community is our campus." That is not rhetoric. We know that we can, should, and need to do more, and that's what we're going to do. And so I will awkwardly transition into something that Chris talked about, and this would be the last thing, because quite frankly, you know, I'm just ready to just move on, to do continue to provide resources and just help. But you know, these times have been really tough. When Chris was talking about funding, I want us all to take a minute. I want you to think about this question I'm asking. Why did we receive ESSER and American Recovery Plan funds? Just want you to think about that. Why? So some of the people that may be tuning in and are thinking, what a dumb question. You got it because you needed it. We got it because of the pandemic. We got it because of potential loss of learning. We got it because our kids were further behind. Our kids got behind. We got it because we needed more resources. Well, duh. And I'm not joking around when I say this, and yeah, I'm going to get a little bit amped up. But of course, not just the pandemic, but you heard Chris talk about the little increase that we're going to have from the state, and it's good. It is a step in the right direction. And I do applaud the legislators for working together and coming across the aisle and doing some things. The biennial budget scares us because it could go back. But ultimately, of course, we need more money. What's not in the budget is anything for EL services, for English learner services, or very little. That is a major, major, major concern. I've talked to Senator Blessing quite a bit, and he has promised, and I'm actually putting him out there, but he knows I would, that that's going to be a really deep, embedded conversation moving forward. But the reason why we got all this money is because it was seen as a necessity, not only in Princeton, across the state, but across the country. Well, learning loss happens every single year in school districts across this great country. It happens because there's a thing called the summer slide that is very real. When you look at opportunities that kids have across this country, all the opportunities are not equal. You know, we're very blessed to have had some of our kids have great summer experiences with learning opportunities. All kids don't have that. And while we do a lot and provide a lot of resources, and we had a great, robust summer school of 1,400 kids, we never had 1,400 kids, and we're not going back. We will continue to encourage, to support students in summer learning opportunities. It was amazing. Not perfect, but amazing nonetheless. So when we look at what we need, yeah. So the $20 million, which is clearly out there, it's been on Front Street, what we're getting and all that stuff, we know that that is a fact. But that should be commonplace, not the exception. So when we look at what our kids need, when everything is all said and done and ESSER goes away, ARP goes away, it would be unconscionable if we don't do something to replace that money as a populace, not just as politicians. And I will call on all voters right now to make sure that you are going to vote with that in mind in upcoming elections. That should be not just rhetoric, that should be what happens each and every day in our country, that we're going to continue to search for resources. And I know you can't just keep printing money, I understand that. But the fact of the matter is, it was seen as a necessity to provide additional money for schools across this country. And by the way, it was always done based on need. So those school districts that had higher economically disadvantaged students received more money. You can't just take that away. And I know at least one person who's out there who's listening right now that I've talked to multiple times that may be thinking that, oh, here we go again. This is Burton on a pulpit talking specifically about how we need more money. Well, that's what gives services. And if you look again, while you look at the increase, I'm going to put Chris Petter on the spot. Chris, how much money are we losing next year for tangible personal property tax that continues to be taken from us?
About $950,000.
About $950,000. And how much are we getting next year increase? I'm sorry.
Under 200.
Under 200. So listen, I'm not that smart. Everybody knows that. 900, take away 200, that's 700. It is insane to me still. So I will continue to push and advocate for additional resources, and our great community who has supported our schools and continues to do so and passed the levy and whatever, just know that we will continue to battle to protect taxpayers' dollars, to not only utilize those great taxpayers' dollars wisely, but also protect them by us going after additional funds. I'm very proud of the work that we've done to get different grants, gifts, and whatever, and our community continues to stand strong and stand together. I was asked not too long ago, how much money do you think that we brought in by different partnerships and so forth not too long ago? And it was almost hilarious as I'm trying to calculate it because I stopped short. I said, well, we had 150,000 here, 100,000 there, 12,000 here, and then all of a sudden I'm like, well, wait a second. We had 240,000 there, We got this grant here, we developed this partnership there. I'm selling the district short when I say, yeah, we're about 400,000 or 500,000. When you look year over year for all the taxpayers that are out there right now, listen, I'm certainly not perfect, we're not perfect as a district, but man, we are on the grind every day to find additional support and resources for our students, and we do that not on the backs of taxpayers all the time. Sometimes we do because that's the nature of the education game. But we're also out there trying to raise money and doing it differently. So we're going to keep levies off ballots, and I know I've talked to people on the board about not using that L word, but that's a fact right there, a fact. You know, one of the things, too, that if you've tuned into our board meetings, and I'm tapering down now, just to let you know, we've talked a lot about professional development, and the board has been unbelievably diligent in supporting professional development of our support staff, of our teachers, administrators, you know, even our students, right, as we develop our students clearly. But one of the things that's interesting I want to point everyone's attention to is as we move forward, we have federal grants and we have allotments. One of the many great things, and I'm not saying that everything that's ever happened in government is bad, it's not the case. There's a ton of great things, way more positive than not positive. But one of the great things is there's been an allowance to be able to roll over funds. That's not always going to happen. So this year, we have a pretty nice chunk of what's called Title IIA funds, which is for professional development. So, and again, based on need and so forth, so that's great. We got that. We may not have that rollover ability again, so for the Board of Education, you may see more professional development than you've seen before. So hiring the people coming in to do audits and support for professional development, or perhaps some conferences. And one example is what transpired about a week and a half ago when a small group of people went down to the Model Schools Conference, and it was amazing, to the T. We had an opportunity to have a review session and reflection session not too long ago. That will happen in the buildings. Tanya Westwright will review that with the principals and assistant principals and instructional coach that went to this conference. But if you look at the amount of work that was done during that conference and how we learned and how we grew, that was amazing. So I just wanted to thank the board for, again, supporting the professional development of the entire district. Thank you. That ends my report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions?
Thank you.
All right, if not, I make a motion that we go into executive session under 12122G to discuss the employment of a public employee.
Second?
It has been moved in second. Mrs. Petter, please call the roll.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes?
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Weider?
Yes.
All right, and there will be no action taken after this executive session. We will retire to our room. Thank you, everyone.
motion at 10:11.
All
Okay.
third.
Moved in second.
Now we just have to vote. No, I don't think so.
We're on camera.
Yeah. Gina did it and then Susan, right?
We're on camera? Yes, we are.
That was to come out of,
Yes,
out.
I made the motion and Ms. Cleveland
Okay,
seconded it.
all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, oppose? Okay,
Did you raise your hand? She did, but she wasn't.
and so now, I have,
if you wanna stay longer, I'm leaving.
no, I move that we adjourn the meeting at 10:12.
I second.